Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to give folks just a few more seconds if people are still filtering in from our main room. But thank you all so much for joining us today for Surviving, Thriving, and Winning in 2024. This is the Sister District Organizing Department's presentation and conversation on sustainability and optimism in activism in 2024. I'm going to kick us off here in just a moment and want to start just by introducing myself. My name is Nicole. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a senior organizing manager with Sister District. I'm going to be, like I said, leading and moderating our discussion today. I've been with Sister District only for a couple of years. I've actually got my second work anniversary coming up in April. But prior to this, I worked in campaigns, mostly in field since 2016. And then before that was a volunteer, got my start knocking doors for former President Obama back in 2008. And so I'm really excited to be talking to everyone about, how it is that we do this work in the long term. So I'm going to start us off with a really brief icebreaker here in 3 words in the chat, if folks wouldn't mind adding, right? How does the 2024 election cycle make you feel? What are the emotions that come to mind when you think of this year? I know I have a lot of feelings, and I'm sure I resonate also with folks on this call. So I'm going to give folks just a little bit of time to answer in here. Anxious but hopeful. I appreciate that. Yes. Determined, exhausted, optimistic. Absolutely. Excellent. I love to hear it. And I would say, right, I know that a lot of folks probably are feeling excited, motivated, optimistic. I know I certainly am, at least in part, after hearing so much about just the amazing work that we've been able to accomplish and so much of our excellent strategy and some of our past victories. But I will say, right, I'm sure a lot of folks are also feeling a little bit nervous, a little bit tired, maybe a little bit scared. I am right there with you. I think it's probably some mix of both, right? And that is okay. I am here to say these feelings are valid. It's so important to recognize that these feelings are a normal reaction to the fact that we're involved in a long-term movement that is both critically important, right? And sometimes a little daunting. We are anxious and nervous because we are so passionate about this work that we are doing. I want to share just a little bit of past research here with folks that I found really interesting. It's been shown, right, that idealistic people in socially driven lines of work, like teachers, like caregivers, nurses, like political activists and volunteers, are more prone to feelings of burnout because this can sometimes be related to a disconnect between the hopes that we have, the things that we are fighting for and the things we want to see, and our perceptions of reality, right? Sometimes it can feel like we just aren't making that progress that we are hoping to make. The good news is that we absolutely are. There is a lot to be happy and hopeful about. And to speak to this a little bit more, I want to welcome Sean Werner, who is our organizing and political director over here at Sister District. Kicking it off over to you, Sean.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here again. I think you can pick up on a tone. I'm the kind of resident hype person because it really is amazing to see and to think through all of the amazing things that Sisters has accomplished since our founding. It's important to remember that, we are engaging in those purple districts and in those seats that will be absolutely critical for us to continue to build progressive power in the states. And of the 177 candidates that we have endorsed, 115 have been victorious, and those aren't those easy seats, right? And so it's truly remarkable. There's been 10 chambers that have been flipped. $5.9 million raised to candidates is just remarkable, and 4.4 million voter contact attempts. And it's also important, like I said, in the last bit of our 2023 impact is the success from key issues, right? Winning elections are important, but improving people's lives is really why we do this work. And so I just remember having the Democratic trifecta in Virginia from 2020 and 2021 because of all the work of folks on the call. So many times what I see in the news, Virginia is the first in the South to abolish the death penalty, to protect LGBTQ LGBTQ Virginians, to expand voting access. Before the trifecta, they were one of the worst states in the country in terms of voting access, and now they are within the top 15. Seeing the amazing work that is happening in Michigan is just remarkable. Truly, just whether that is repealing right to work, one of the first states to do that in decades, to securing access to abortion in Michigan. And then I am fortunate to be calling in from Denver, where we have benefited from the sister district's work in making sure that we had control of the Colorado Senate, but also in Washington State and Massachusetts. Winning those trifectas really have improved people's lives. And again, as we are in a post-Dobbs world, it is just so critical for us to realize that we have had such an impact on people's lives in terms of accessing reproductive freedom. So that is in Michigan, obviously passing the ballot initiative, but then the implementation through the legislature. In Pennsylvania, had we not flipped the Pennsylvania House, Republicans could have once again passed a ballot initiative to amend the Pennsylvania Constitution, completely avoiding the governor. But us being able to do that has stopped them in their tracks. And then obviously the huge victories in Virginia allowed us to continue to have abortion access in the South. And I will go immediately to Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is a perfect example of our persistent and consistent work in each of these states. And so it's so awesome to see the new maps here. But if you think through this, in 2020, there were endorsements. We endorsed some candidates, and one of those now is the lieutenant governor, Sarah Rodriguez. We were able to pick up some seats and able to veto we were able to sustain the veto from Governor Evers. So Republicans pass an awful map, the governor is able to veto that, and Democrats were able to hold the line, which ultimately kicked those maps to the courts. The courts did say it was a Republican leaning court. They sided with Governor Evers' map, and they were still very gerrymandered. But it was obviously absolutely critical for us to hold the ability to sustain his veto. And there also was an awesome election where we were able to win a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, changing control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And so when we were able to hold that, prevent Republicans from getting a supermajority in the assembly in 2022 with the wins of Lee Snodgrass and Tip McGuire. By the way, I also want to let you know they are they were the largest fundraisers in 2022, in large part because of you all. With $1,000 contribution limits, you really have to make sure that so many people know who they are and the importance of their elections. And because of your work, we were able to avoid slipping into the super minority. And because of that, and because of the win on the Wisconsin Supreme Court just 2 weeks ago, Governor Evers signed into law maps that we know we can run and win on. So we are on the precipice of flipping the Wisconsin Assembly. And as Gabby said, we need to pick up a handful of seats in the Wisconsin Senate so that we can come back and take our second bite at the apple to get that Democratic trifecta in 2026. This state has always been viewed as the most heavily gerrymandered, and because of our work in strategic races, the Tip McGuires, the Lee Snodgrasses, the Sarah Rodriguezes, that is the reason why we are in the place where we are, to be able to now go and win the Wisconsin Assembly, pick up the necessary seats in the Wisconsin Senate. We know how to do it. We just got to do it.
Fantastic. Thank you so, so much, Sean. Absolutely. If you all haven't guessed, Sean is definitely our hype man, one of our favorite people to talk to about politics over here at Sister District. And so always love hearing about our victories. It's so motivating. But I will say, right, it also sort of triggers a question, at least in my mind, which is, why is it so hard to capture and retain that positive feeling? Right? You may remember I mentioned that those feelings of anxiety can be sometimes caused, right, by a disconnect between our hopes and our perceptions of reality. So the questions to my mind are, in part, right? First of all, how do we make sure we're drawing the connection between our wins and our feelings? And then how do we internalize our victories and center optimism in our work? One of the answers here definitely is just to be aware of what those wins are. But we also recognize, right, that solutions aren't simple and that sustainability in our present climate requires ongoing conversation and incremental change. So for today, our goal is really to break the ice, voice and validate these feelings of mixed excitement and fear that we all have, and begin broaching the topic of sustainability within our community through a conversation that explores potential tactics and opportunities for 2024. For our purposes, we'll be structuring our discussion through two pillars. First is sustainability, specifically as it pertains to our work as organizers and activists and volunteers. And then second, the importance of building community within these groups that we are all parts of. So like I said, first off here, kicking off our conversation on sustainable organizing, I want to start by really defining sustainability. I think all of us have an idea, right, what we believe sustainability means. It's certainly not a topic that we haven't heard much about in the past decade or so, but really want to start just by aligning of what we mean when we talk about sustainability. Right? Not just as our ability to continue doing this critical work in the long term, but also as a way to ensure that we are meeting our present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. This is a definition that's put forth by the United Nations. It's extremely helpful, I think, for our purposes, just in framing the conversation. So really want to think about how we are setting ourselves up for success, but also how our work is contributing to the work of future generations and helping them succeed. So we recognize, right, sustainability has to be a part of our work as organizers. So how do we practice sustainability exactly, right? That is the question of the hour. I think the first step here, one of the keys to sort of broaching this conversation is just being able to identify those opportunities for sustainability. I think this involves a little bit of mindfulness and introspection, sometimes confronting ourselves with some tough questions. I know I certainly can be someone who is a little bit thorough, a little bit, prone to giving myself a lot of tasks. And so I like to ask myself, where have I not been sustainable in the past? What are those opportunities for sustainability in the future? For folks who may be confused as to why there is a flock of birds on our screen, I have included this because I genuinely believe that migratory birds in particular have some really interesting lessons to teach us about sustainability. The first is about collaboration. Birds choose the flying V formation because it makes their flight more efficient. The way this works is that each bird benefits from the updraft that's created by the bird in front of it. And the birds also trade places over long distances. So the birds in front will rotate to positions in the back and vice versa. And this allows all of the birds time and opportunity to share the load. The second big lesson here is that this structure allows the birds to maintain visibility over one another's movement. So it really facilitates transparency and communication. Take that for what you will. I feel like the birds really have a lot to teach us here, which is funny. And I also want to voice, right, that sustainability is hard. So I want to remind folks, we do not have to do it all at once, right? And we don't have to do it alone. Be like the birds. Don't tackle these issues by yourself, which takes us to our second pillar here, building community. I will say, any Sister District Phone Bank veteran, phone banker, canvasser, volunteer can tell you the work is more fun when we do it together. Now, we all understand that building community is important. I think that's, again, not really a strange concept for folks. A lot of the movements that we are part of are centered on relationships and networks. And so I think it's really important to identify that by being mindful in understanding why this is the case and why building community is so important, we can really be thoughtful about proactively generating community amongst our peers. It is just so much easier to internalize hope and optimism and to share those victories when we model those things for one another through appreciation, support, and joy, right? We like to say we come for the cause here at Sister District and we stay for the company, for one another. That ability to build strong, meaningful relationships is just absolutely fundamental for laying a foundation for success, both now and again, in the long term. With that, I am actually going to stop sharing my screen and introduce our three amazing panelists here. We are joined by Lisa Durkin, Maureen Sheehan, and Jordan Hiller, who are three of our fabulous Sister District volunteer leaders. So I'm going to give folks just a second here. Make sure everyone can see us. Okay, great. And then I want to start just by asking folks, if you wouldn't mind, please introducing yourselves. If you want to share, your name, your team, the leadership role you have on your team, maybe how long you've been with Sister District, and if you wouldn't mind, your 3 words for how you're feeling in 2024.
Well, hi, I'm Laura Durkin. I will go first. I am with Sister District Greater Chicago, and I have been a member of Sister District since August of 2021. And I love the work that I'm doing, really, really do. And I think 3 words that would describe how I'm feeling as we go into this next election year is joyful. I'm really focusing on joy. We're really focusing on joy this year. My co-lead, Laura Zupko, and I have talked about how important that is. And hearing Gabby's words about how much opportunity there is in the States makes me more joyful. Joyful, optimistic, and determined are 3 words that would describe how I'm feeling right now. Thank you.
I'll go next. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be muting myself mostly because I'm in a noisy area, so I'll mute and unmute as needed. I'm Jordan Hiller. I am with the mighty Portland Plus team. I've been doing this with Sister District. I was, let's say I was phone bank curious in 2017, and I really leaped in 2018 and beyond. So my 3 words: resolute, focused, and determined. There's joy in there too, but I'm gonna work on the action-oriented part of it for now.
Good.
And I'm Maureen Sheehan, and from South Bay, that's Northern California, Silicon Valley. And I joined Sister District in 2019 after my Democratic Volunteer Center shut down at the end of 2018 because there wasn't any more to do, but I knew there was. And in terms of how I'm feeling this year, we're all saying determined. And I'm inspired by the summit today. I'm inspired by everybody I've met through Sister District and what we've accomplished. I see so many friends from across the country on this Zoom. And I too am optimistic. Absolutely. We're going to kill it this year. I know it.
Thank you so much, Maureen. I also just got a note in the chat here. It looks like we're not going to be able to spotlight our speakers, unfortunately. So if you are not a panelist, if you wouldn't mind turning off your video, it will really help to highlight the folks who we're speaking to today. Thank you all so much. All right, now I did hear motivation as one of the key things, right, that we're all feeling a little bit today. And certainly I'm feeling so motivated after so many of the just amazing words from you all, and then also from all of our various speakers today. So I'm curious to just start by asking each of you what motivates you, right? What brought you into this work in the first place? What is that thing that keeps you going, even when the going maybe gets a little tough? And why don't we start with Laura? Do you want to start?
Sure. What gets me going? Okay, what gets me going is the strong belief that we really do have an impact. I joined Sister District. I had just retired. I was frustrated and feeling helpless about making a difference. I was invited to a candidate webcast by a Sister District leader, and I was hooked. Just hearing about how impactful one person contributing to this larger effort could be it just motivates me and continues to.
Thank you so much, Laura D. I want to kick it over to Jordan. Do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. I'm going to focus on the part about what keeps you coming back. Just like everybody, it can be discouraging at times, and I voiced this. I shared this with one of the phone bankers in our group. Is a Rabbi Brian, and he's an amazing phone banker. He can talk to anybody and make them laugh. I love that about him. And I told him how I was feeling. I was feeling like the task was so big. He wrote this quote to me, and I'm going to read it to you. He said that Rabbi Tarfon, I think like the 1st century or so, he said, "You are not required to finish the work, yet neither are you permitted to desist from it." And that just really resonated with me in a very strong way. That meant that, I do my part so I can sleep at night, and it might not feel like always I'm doing everything, but I'm doing my part, and that's enough.
Thank you, Jordan. I love that. How about you, Maureen? What gets you going?
I agree with Jordan. What gets me going is my father started me off at age 8 stuffing envelopes for JFK. So it's a lifetime of activism, democratic activism in my family. But really what keeps me coming back is the fantastic volunteers that I work with in South Bay in our chapter, and the
Okay.
Big Sister District staff. If you're feeling down, there's always somebody to pick you up. There's always the ability to celebrate a win every day. Just today, I got a text from one of our captains. She's recruited a new volunteer, a new phone banker. We found another one this week. We celebrate every little win, and that's what keeps me coming back, because really, what's the alternative? As Obama said, we're the ones that we've been waiting for. We're the change that we seek, and that could not be more truer than right now.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And I feel like this leads perfectly sort of into another question here, just about, getting to that question of staying sustainable. We are all, I think, familiar with the boom and bust, I think, as Gabby put it, of the campaign cycle. It seems like are sprinting, if not marathoning, towards a finish line, and then it's sort of radio silence for a couple of months before we start up again. So I'm curious to ask folks if there are any specific things that you do to help you stay optimistic, to help center that hope, and to, maybe reduce some of those feelings of tiredness, either during the cycle, during that marathon, or in between cycles when we have that break. And Laura D., do you want to kick us off this time?
Sure. In between cycles, this may seem counterintuitive, but I drop all my political volunteering. And I give my time to local organizations that help people in need. This year I'm working with a Chicago organization that helps feed the food insecure. And I'm working with their program that delivers food. It started out helping seniors, but it's predominantly now an audience that is families who can't afford the cost of food, or this delivery is because the parents work 2 jobs and can't be there when the food pantry is open. Learning that there were 7 million meals served by this organization last year just got rid of any burnout feeling that I had from when things stopped in November. It just helped re-energize me to understand that the work we are doing is so critically important, because there are things out there that are not so great. So seeing this organization, if we had the right people in power, then we wouldn't be feeding 7 million, meals just in this one organization in Chicago. So that just really does re-energize me every time I go there. Even though I'm just doing kind of grunt work, it helps me know that our path is clear.
Absolutely. And Jordan, Maureen, do you have thoughts on this question as well?
Yeah, I'll take a go.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Thanks, Maureen. Sorry. Yeah, I'd say just resting and recharging is so important. Like Laura, I tend to tune out for a little while after election day and just rest. And even during the cycle, I make sure there are times that I can just, not look at the email, try to avoid the blogs and the news a little bit. And I play video games, great way to turn off the brain, but whatever that is for you, you got to find your outlet, find your rest.
Good.
And I turn to friends and family. They all understand that it's going to be relatively harder to see me for 6 months of the year than it is the other 6 months. And what I do during the year is I start planning the visits for when after the election is over. I'm already planning what I'm doing after the election. I read and garden and walk. And yeah, just I'm so grateful for everything that I have and how important it is to share it with others.
Yes, big shout out to the extended sister district community, which is all of our friends and families and just everyone who keeps us sustainable. I like to call these folks sustainability buddies, the folks who keep us going. All right. Well, like I said, when the going gets tough. Also, shout out to Paul in the chat. I see you play the piano and do musical theater. That is amazing. And I think definitely right. A really good way to center on joy so that we can continue being motivated on the things that we do. So I guess, Maureen, to get to your point about community, right? I'd be remiss if I didn't mention and shout out that all of our panelists today are phone bank leaders. And as phone bank leaders, community building is really central, right, to the work that we do. So I'd like to ask, what are some of the ways that you build a sense of community within your phone banking team? Maureen, do you want to start us off there?
Well, some of the things that we've done is every October, we phone bank every Saturday. We start in February and go through the election. And every October, the Saturday that's closest to Halloween, we all wear our costumes on Zoom. This year, we're doing hybrid phone banks, and that's really fun. Somebody always brings a fantastic treat. And we take the time to know each other so that when one of our big phone bankers had a baby, we all got together and bought the baby one of our favorite children's books, and I brought them to the new baby, to the family. And it's that kind of thing, taking the time. Yes, you're phone banking, but also how are your kids doing? How are your grandkids doing? What's up with you?
Yes, I love that. I think that's really lovely also. Laura D., do you want to tell us a little bit about how you build community in your phone bank?
Yes. So I have the privilege of I am a co-lead. So there's two of us who lead our phone bank, which is really great. Her name's also Laura D and Laura Z. We use Zoom, we build community, and we've been doing this for 2 years now, really building the community via Zoom. I'm not sure if we're going to do hybrid this year. There's been some talk about it, but we build that by using Zoom chat so much during our Zoom calls. We always have something, Maureen, you talked about earlier, was we have these mid-session touch bases. When we all get together halfway through the session and talk about what people are experiencing and celebrate the wins. And my colleague, Laura Zupko, is really terrific at reminding people that if you got a Republican, if you got somebody moved, if you've got an undecided, those are all wins. And so we build up the phone banking team because they can get down. Somebody can say, I've just made 20 calls and not one person's picked up. And Laura Zupko will always chime in saying, it'll be your turn next week. Somebody is doing a lot today. Next week, it's going to be your turn. We also send private direct messages during our calls to certain phone bankers. This is something we learned with Neil, and tell them how much we appreciate them. And we may then also, after the phone bank, send an email to other people we haven't reached out with a direct message, telling them what a great job they're doing and thanking them for their participation. And in 2024, we are going to be doing meet and greets with our volunteer phone bankers, and hopefully we'll get them to bring friends to these meet and greets.
I love all of that. Yes, amazing tactics. And I want to actually expand and ask you a little bit more about those specific tactics. Laura D., if you wouldn't mind. I know one of the things we like to do is, encourage people using the chat in our phone banks. Can you speak a little bit to what it is about that that the volunteer team finds helpful? Why do you like to use that in particular?
Well, it's an immediate response. So we give the volunteers an opportunity to ask us questions if they need. to, and we immediately respond. It's also a way to celebrate the volunteers. Someone will put up, I finally got somebody to pick up, and then we'll go woo woo, and then other volunteers will be jumping in, so that it really does, even though we're all disconnected, we're not in the same room, there is a feeling of camaraderie that we try to create on the Zoom calls.
Absolutely. I'm sure folks who have phone bank before may know, right? Sometimes it feels really exhausting and a little bit disheartening to just be like alone in your room with somebody else making phone calls and hoping that somebody answers the phone. And so, right, being in that big Zoom room and having that camaraderie and celebrating every single one of those victories, even when they're a little bit counterintuitive, maybe, just helps us feel a lot better about ourselves. Definitely. All right, I want to ask sort of, oh, you want to go ahead and jump in, Jordan?
I did, if it's okay, Nicole.
Yes,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Yeah, just first of all, 100% to everything that Laura said about Zoom and engagement with the breaks, with the chat. That all helps so much. And for us, it was transformative. I mean, we had in-person phone banks before the pandemic, which were sparsely attended and irregular. And regular Zoom phone banks, it just built such a strong community. I'm amazed by it. It's really incredible. Just who knew? The pandemic changed so many things, and this is one of those little silver linings. The other thing I wanted to bring up was just hope as a specific tactic. It really is. I try to make a point of radiating gratitude and positivity and hope. Even if I'm not feeling it 100%, I put what I can out there, and it comes back to you 100-fold. It just sustains the community, and it builds. And as leaders, we sort of set the tone for that in these calls. And it's a ripple effect. You put it out there, and it just grows and grows, and it's a wonder. It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful thing.
I absolutely love that, Jordan. And yeah, to Laura Z's point in the chat, right? Everyone likes to feel appreciated. So it feels really good, I think, to give that appreciation and receive that appreciation. And then, like I was saying, I want to sort of broaden the conversation a little bit and get to your point too, Jordan, about how, right, we're sort of living in unprecedented times, I think. I want to get to the idea, right, of quote unquote saving democracy. I feel like, especially within the past decade or so, it almost feels like every single election cycle is an existential cycle. Every single campaign, right, is the most important campaign, the most important election of our lifetimes. And that is pretty big, right? That is a huge, abstract, difficult to conceptualize, long-term thing, and that can feel really challenging to tackle. So as volunteer leaders, I'm curious to get your takes, right? How do you make that big, lofty goal just more accessible to people on your teams? Jordan, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Sure, and somebody said this before, but it's still true. You have to celebrate the small wins, break these big, scary goals that we have down into really concrete small steps and concrete wins. Yeah. Finding a disconnected voter. I mean, it doesn't feel like much, and it feels maybe like a loss until you reframe that as a win. So knowing that everything that you're doing is helping, and you're doing your part, right? You don't have to do everything, but you're doing your part, and you can feel good about that.
Right. Be like the birds.
Love that analogy.
Don't do it alone. Yeah, absolutely. Maureen, do you have thoughts here?
I second everything everybody else said. I think that it's the small wins, and it's also empathy. Like when you're having a bad phone bank, I once made 150 calls and didn't talk to anybody. That's a record. Knowing that the next time it's going to be better, that other people have been there, that there's no shame in having a tough day or saying, I have to go now. I've done an hour and I can't do one more call today. I'll pick it up again some other time. I think one of the other things that we do too is we've tried to make room in our phone bank for what we call the lone wolf phone bankers.
Yeah.
So we have a really dedicated phone banker. She went from postcarding, the gateway drug to phone banking, to being a phone banker. And she likes to call every day for like half an hour, 40 minutes, that's her thing. That's what she does. And we figured out how to get her included in our tallies. HQ, Big Sister District can tell you how to do that to make sure it's right. How to communicate with her, which candidate we're calling for when we get to the summer and we have more than one candidate. But really trying to meet people where they are. So we have a whole range of folks. Some want a phone bank by themselves, some want to do it as a group. I have a couple of captains who write the weekly memo every single week and have said they will continue to do that, been doing it for years, as long as they never have to come to a meeting. It's a fair trade in my book. So it's like, what can we do to meet that individual volunteer's needs and make it the most successful and joyful experience for them?
Definitely. Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Maureen. I think this also just leads really excellently into this question that I have for everyone, which is, right, first of all, right, as an organizer, I can tell you that really the heart and soul of every campaign that I've ever worked on is our volunteer capacity, right? You all are out there every single day, week after week, doing the hard work to make sure that our candidates can have the biggest possible impact in these targeted races. And it can be really difficult, right, to sustain that pace. I also want to acknowledge, right, that all of our panelists are volunteer leaders, which adds sort of an extra layer, right, of responsibility on top of that. Not only are you working so hard yourself to achieve this positive change, but you are also modeling, right, this optimism and hope for others. You're also guiding and teaching and bringing other folks along. And so I'm really curious to ask if any of you have, right, advice maybe or pro tips for other folks in the room who might be interested in taking on more of a leadership role and are a little bit nervous about taking on more responsibility when maybe they already feel a little bit overwhelmed. Yeah.
Well, it can be daunting. I think though, when you're in a group, there will be people in the group that will help and support you. No, I don't think any one of us, Laura and Jordan join in, but none of us are alone in our chapters.
No.
Our fellow leads, captains, volunteers, activists, whatever you want to call them, are just so supportive. We do some really concrete things in my chapter. We use Google Docs a lot, and we have a Google Calendar. And every time a captain's going to be away, you put it in Google Calendar, and then others look and say, okay, we got to step up. Who's going to do the phone bank that week when you're away? Who's going to take care of postcarding? It's been a great way, again, to keep each other in touch with what's going on so that we can support and help each other and work together effectively.
Yeah, 100%, Maureen. And let me also say that you're not going to get help unless you ask for it, and that's something I learned from Mary Ann, our our leader at Portland Plus, and she's really, really good at asking for help, and I think that's something we learned from the sister district leadership as well. You got to ask, and not everybody's going to volunteer to do everything you ask for, but you'll get enough help. You do. People step up.
I think another thing I might, what I might say to people who may be interested in taking a leadership position would be to talk to someone and see if you could be, reach out to someone on the team and see if you could be their co-lead. This is a model that worked really well with Laura Zupko and I. I don't think I would have raised my hand to lead the phone banks. But I was interested in working with somebody on it, and Laura was interested in having somebody work with her. And so I think that having those, if you've, having that extra set of ears and extra set of hands really has made us more successful together. And we leverage each other's, strengths. And so if you are a person who is a volunteer, who doesn't have a leadership role, but you may be interested in thinking about one, approach somebody as to say, hey, can I co-lead with you? Or can I have more, can I help you with that? Because I think that means you don't have to take the whole role on yourself. There's strength in numbers.
Such good points, Laura,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I would just add, don't feel like, you have to jump right into like leading phone banking every week.
Yes.
Mhm.
If you could look around and say, gee, I'd like to be the co-lead on that garden party and help organize the food and the setup and the cleanup. That's a great way to dip your toe in. You work with a small group. It's very time defined. You do the event, and then it's over after you write your thank yous. And it can give you a really good taste for what you like and might not like about leadership.
That is such an important point, Maureen, right? The idea that leadership doesn't necessarily have to be this all-consuming commitment, right? You can change your mind and say, I really thought I would like doing this particular thing on the team, but maybe I prefer to do this other thing. That is totally okay. I think it gets also to Jordan's point earlier, right, about having that internal conversation. Sustainability starts here with you, right? Have those honest conversations with yourself. Where can I ask for help? How can I be more communicative and transparent? And then also, Jordan, I want to dig in a little bit further into your point about delegation. Not to put you on the spot, but I know that you did something that is very difficult last year as a phone bank leader, which is you delegated our Get Out the Vote phone banks, right? Your GOTV phone banks for the chapter to someone else. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love to hear a little bit more about how you went about doing that, how you give yourself the grace to make that decision.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Yeah, well, I had a long planned vacation that my wife really wanted to go on, and it was right in, it was late October, early November, and there was really no choice. So I think I had to go on this vacation, or she would have been really disappointed in me. But that being said, we had tremendous talent in our team, and not only that, our phone bank fellow in the last cycle was tremendous and confident and grew. And so I felt very comfortable asking her and putting her in charge, knowing that she had backup. So she ran, I think, probably three of our final phone banks. It went beautifully, and it was a little bit hard to let go of control because I am a bit of a control freak. But I was so glad. I was so glad to see that it was sustainable without me. I didn't have to be there for everything, so that was great.
Yeah, I can testify that it was a great system. I think in the end it worked really well. And also speaks to right, for those of us who are maybe sort of control freaks, it's okay to set yourself a system where you need to step back, right? There's that small accountability factor here. I can't miss this vacation, right? Doing that deliberately maybe can be helpful. I know I've only got a couple of minutes left here. So I want to ask you all just really quickly, what is it that gives you joy in this work? We've talked so much about centering optimism and joy. What brings you joy as volunteer leaders?
The people that I've met, the people that I've re-met. I ran into a nurse that I hadn't seen for 30 years and has joined our chapter as a postcarder. And just the sense that, yeah, I have a purpose. I've retired now and I'm doing something that's going to help my children, grandchildren, and everyone else's.
Yeah. 100%. The purpose, the feeling like you're contributing, and the community. Boy, activists are the best people, and volunteers are the best people. And I'm just so glad that I've made lifelong friends in our team. So grateful.
I concur with everything that Maureen and Jordan have said. And one thing is that I'm an ex-salesperson, right? I was in sales for a long time. And so having spent 30 plus years in that as my day job, it was like winning was important. And one of the things that I do like about our approach towards phone banking is that there are always wins. We are always winning on the phone bank. We're always supporting the candidate, whatever we do. And that just brings me a lot of joy to know that we are part of something much larger, but really important.
Couldn't have said it better myself than all of you three. Thank you so much. I believe our host is going to be closing the Zoom rooms in just about a minute, but I want to reiterate, right, our appreciation for all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for all of the incredible work that you have done and continue to do, and for helping us think a little bit more about how to be sustainable, how we center optimism, how we, right, think about all of those little wins that get us to the big win, and how we can continue to do this work in the long term. Always a pleasure. See you all back in the main room. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.
Of course. Goodbye.